should be able to wrap up on beams today, and then we can start with discourses maybe tomorrow. Yeah. So we are on page.
That must be the topic.
Okay, that's a private conversation with both of you. Good.
Yeah.
72, 72, page 72. Prayer as inner approach. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. For most persons, the outer ceremonies and rituals prevalent in the diverse religions are the established approach to God and divinity. They are regarded as indispensable. However, they are neither essential nor necessary, though at times they have been allowed or given by masters by way of inevitable accommodation to human weakness. This they may also be practiced with benefit when they are thus allowed or given by a master, but only during the period for which they have been prescribed and in the context in which they are intended to be given effect. They have no lasting value, nor can they be made eternally binding. They were never essential or indispensable. They are never essential or indispensable, and they will never be essential or indispensable. Let us take, for example, the stern disciple and fasts associated with Ramadan, very appropriately timed. No doubt they serve some spiritual purpose, but one way of looking upon it is to regard them as a sort of compulsory rationing of food and water in those areas where they were rare and where such control was necessary in the interest of society. It is not necessary to convert the instructions of the Prophet into inflexible and eternal rules of discipline. In the context in which they were given, they served both material and spiritual purpose. They cannot be regarded as inescapable or necessary in all times and climes. The same thing applies to any other disciplines given by other seers or masters. The masters have sometimes followed external disciplines, including prayers, and have set an example of humility and readiness to learn from others. Thus, Muhammad played the role of being taught by Gabriel. He thereby achieved two things. Firstly, he gave to the world an example of readiness to learn from others. And secondly, he awakened the teacher in Gabriel. No teachers have been content with merely external disciples. Through their teachings as well as example, they have often set forth prayer as the inner approach to God and divinity. What constitutes the essence of prayer? Many prayers to God are current among the lovers of God, arising as they do from diverse cultural contexts. Some of the prayers invariably contain an element of asking something from God, either material or spiritual. In fact, God is so merciful and bountiful that even without their asking, He always gives more than His lovers can receive. He knows their real needs more deeply than they do. Therefore, the element of asking something from God is superfluous. It often mars the inner love and worship which a prayer tries to express. The ideal prayer to the Lord is nothing more than spontaneous praise of His being. You praise Him not in the spirit of bargain, but in the spirit of self forgetful appreciation of what He really is. You praise Him because He is praiseworthy. Your praise is a spontaneous, appreciative response to His true being as infinite light, infinite power, and infinite bliss. It is futile to attempt a standard prayer and hold it up as an ideal for all people of all times. The glory of the Almighty transcends all human understanding and defies all verbal descriptions. Eternally fresh and self renewing in its unlimited amplitude, it never fades, nor is it ever confined within the limits of the best of hymns. All hymns and prayers reach out towards the eternal truth of Godhead only to Merge those who utter them in silent and unending adoration. If by ideal prayer to the Lord is meant a set formula, any search for it is a wild goose chase. All prayers ultimately initiate the soul into a ever deepening silence of sweet adoration, and all formulae are dissolved and assimilated into the integral and direct appreciative perception of divine truth. That which seeks to reach towards the immeasurable itself becomes incapable of being measured by any set standards. The ritualistic and repetitive expressions of prayer do not and cannot do justice to the innermost essence of prayer, which is adoring love for the eternal beloved. To attempt to standardize prayer is to mar its intrinsic beauty. If you pray with a motive to do good to someone, your prayer may actually bring about good both to him and to yourself. Some people pray for the spiritual benefit of those who have done them some wrong. There also, they are helping others spiritually. But all prayers with a motive fall short of the ideal prayer, which is without motive. In the entire spiritual panorama of the universe, nothing is more sublime than a spontaneous prayer. It gushes out of the human heart filled with appreciative joy. It is self-expression of the freed spirit without any actuation of a motive. In its highest form, prayer leaves no room for the illusory diarchy of the lover and the beloved. It is a return to one's own being. I'll pause here for any comments, but I think I found this to be a very interesting sequence. He starts by saying prayer is nothing, but ends beautifully by saying prayer is having some relevance and significance.
Karthik,
Yeah.
I would like to say something here.
Please.
Me and Asma, 2 days back, I think 2 days back, we were at that Effort and Grace group, and out of blue moon, this prayer thing, and to pray to Baba and how it all of us. So we were talking about that, and I sent her a small WhatsApp, which is I never read this before, so I would like to share this piece with all of you.
Please.
And this is a Ramzan, a good time. Baba has discussed about the book has. So I would like to read this. Is it permissible?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Considering the importance of repeating Baba's name, William M. Stephens, one of the early Westerner residents, told me that Adi K. Rani rose at 3 each morning to spend a quieter hours or two in meditation on Meher Baba before pilgrims came knowing at his door. Considering the importance of repeating Baba's name, Baba did not say very much about the actual process we should follow. In November 1955, at the men's Sehwas, the Don Stevens attended and wrote about the Listen Humanity. Baba asked for volunteers to share activities in his work for 21 days. Each of the men selected was to stay inside his own home, take no food and only water, and repeat Baba's name constantly during the waking hours. They were to say Ba on each inhalation and Ba on the each exhalation. Quite a few men volunteered for each of the three Indian languages group, Marathi, Hindi and Telugu, but Baba gradually modified the condition to require them to fast and repeat his name for only 7 days instead of 21. From the time I have tried the method Baba specified in 1955 to inhale with his first vowel and his name and exhale with the last. This method, it seems to me, has the effect of slowing down the breathing and consequently stilling the mind. Becoming aware of one of the breathing is a meditation in itself. It is becomes infinitely more potent when combined with the repetition of God's name. Sometimes I use this process while I lying awake early in the morning, or it often results to my going into half sleep state in which the repetition of God's name seems to continue without effort on my part. During daylight hours, that method so meditative, so relaxing, it is difficult for me. It is easier to attend a string of words to each breath. While inhaling, I might think Meher Baba Avatar, and while exhaling, Meher Baba, I love you. Meher Baba Avatar, while inhaling, and while exhaling, Meher Baba, I love you. In my mind, craving variety, perhaps it apt to change this after a while for something different, such as Meher Baba, who am I? Meher Baba, who are you? Which our time might be changed to Meher Baba, who. Who means he's the one. Meher Baba, who, Meher Baba, you. And later I may realize I'm saying something like, who Baba, who, you Baba, you Baba, and so on. High volume repetitions are in the beginning very exhausting and difficult, when there are times when the image of Baba seems to come alive and I feel I'm actually in his presence, kissing and touching his feet and hands, and while his humorous eyes observes me compassionately. Perhaps the most positive result is the addiction that develops in addition that brings nothing but benefits and no determinants, and which no one would ever wants to kick. This addition does not demand attention when you have other things to do. While you are concentrating on daily tasks, it remains submalign. But when you work, but when your work is finished and you set out for a walk or a drive, you may realize suddenly that without any conscious thought on your part, Baba's name is being repeated in your consciousness. And it feels so good that you inwardly thank beloved Baba for allowing you to experience such joy. This is Footprints in the Sands. It's some magazine. If this is from some magazine. Thank you so much. Thanks.
And who are the two people you credited in the beginning?
This is by William M. Stephens.
Oh, okay.
From an old Baba lovers.
Yeah, actually, I know one.
First time I'm reading something like this, so I thought to share this.
I have seen one couple, the Ukers from New Jersey, Cedar Grove. You might know them, Kama. Don and I don't know the lady's name, Don Euchre, and he used to do this all the time. He used to always be saying Baba all the time, right? So either aloud, audible to others, or in his mind. And later I read something like this, so I figured Don was doing that. But he's a very, very deep man. He's a teacher from New Jersey who came to Baba long back, and then if you're aware of the groups, I think his wife went through quite a bit on the health side, but she fought it. And for me, the great thing was how he handled it, right? So he's in the New York group, and he specifically kept sending messages to everybody saying, "Don't worry about her. Baba's taking care. Don't call me. I'm fine." He's very old. I think 80s or something like that. The wife must be around the same. So it was a joy to know such people. Thanks for sharing.
Baba said that my name is more powerful than me. There's some statement like that. So, which is also very fascinating.
Yes.
Karthik.
Yeah.
I think since we talked about prayer, why don't we ask the participant how do they perceive prayer in their own? We are all doing Baba's prayer. So how does each one of us, pray to Baba? I would be interested in knowing if it's okay.
Sure. So let me start with myself. From a very young age, I could relate very strongly to this business-like attitude that I was seeing all around me in prayer. Right? People go and say, "Hey, go and ask for this, and you'll get it." And I could just not relate to that from the beginning, saying, "Hey, that's not. I don't think whatever this God is going to ask for deals. I do something for me, and I'll do this for you or whatever, right?" So I never, as even as a kid, I remember this very very strongly. I never felt comfortable with that. So for me, I think prayer is a way of connecting to the divine in those few minutes. I make it a point to do it just after I have my shower, and it's like a ritual that has stayed with me long before Baba. And of course, with Baba, it becomes the prayers that I read. So it's a moment of quietude and connection with Him, and a reminder. And especially, I like the format of our prayers because it also brings reflection automatically. It tells you about your last day. It brings you the forgiveness, and then the repentance, and then finally you're reminded of the love for Baba. So I just love that format. I don't do it twice. I'll be honest, unless I'm in Mehrabad. I do it once a day, and I never miss it. So that's me. Anybody else? Or we'll go in.
I have a
Sure, go ahead.
book I picked up in Bombay even before coming across Baba. I'll just show you this book. Can you all see?
Yes.
Yes.
There is Baba's photograph also in that, amongst all the other gurus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
can you see it now?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can.
Yeah, there is Sai Baba at the center, Osho is there, and a lot
Osho,
of other Babas. So this book talks of this I picked up, but I just kept it. I pick up many books and read when after many years also sometimes. So after going to Samadhi for the first time, I was inspired by a photograph at a friend's place, which is there in God Speaks, that garlanded photograph. Are you aware? The garlanded.
Yes,
That's
yes. It's a very
that's the
prominent
first
photograph.
time at a friend's place I saw that, and I told everyone we had all gathered together. I said we must go to him. So one of us had gone and described about Baba. So I said, let's go. So four of us, we regularly go since the last 13 years. So I'd like
I
to
have met
read
them.
something. I wanted to ask, in fact, today, and coincidentally, the same topic comes up. I'm reading this part. If you want to know anything of God and to reach God, then catch hold only of Baba's Daman. Repeat Baba's name not less than 14 times, but more, as often as you can. Baba, Baba, Baba. One day, in an instant, that veil will be ripped open. Do it with love. I tell you this with all authority. After reading this, for many years I have been saying Baba 14 times. I didn't know it's more. So I was just uttering 14 times whenever I remember, wherever I am. And
To each disciple is different. Like one of the Baba disciple, he used to chant Baba's name for 1 lakh, so
yeah,
more than from morning 8 to 11 he used to chant in the at the Samadhi, and then again he used to go because he was instructed by Baba like that. So
yeah.
it's
Balnathu
different.
also used to do a lot.
Bal
Most
Nathu
of the
also
Monday
used to.
Yeah, most of the
Yes.
Monday
I think you're also talking about Kaikobad.
Yes.
Kaikobad, yes, Kaikobad.
but this
Right.
is
Who said Kaikobad?
what Baba has said.
Yeah,
No one
most
else is
Mandali
saying.
To
used
each,
do that.
to each is different.
No, it's not different. This is Baba's instruction. He's saying, I tell you this in all authority.
Okay.
I don't know. I have not come across anyone saying this to me so far. But I have been uttering for more than 10 years now, whenever I feel like. And when I first went to the Samadhi, I saw that thing, the plaque, things real given
Given and
silence. And also, I immediately read, I have not come to teach you, I have come to awaken you. So I used to think Baba has not written anything. So he has no teachings. But it seems and turns out now that he has written a lot.
So continuing Neha's, when you read that, you're right. Baba, I think one of the easiest way to understand or how to remember Baba is to remember him in our breathing cycle, inhalation ba and exhalation ba. Easy to understand intellectually, but quite difficult, but not impossible if we keep practicing that. So what I have done is, because I'm a big fan of acronyms, so I've come with an acronym for Baba itself, BABA, as breath awareness is Baba awareness. Okay. So Baba awareness is breath awareness because breathing is non-dual. It's in the eternal now. And based on the Parvatigar prayer, Baba is in everything, animate, inanimate, whatever. So it is a kind of a impersonal and personal way of meditation on Baba, remembering Baba. So, and another thing, as you said, different strokes for different folks. So I think each one will figure out, based on Baba's grace, how we go about it. So my philosophy is, ESP, eat, sleep, play, PLAY, not pray or PREY, because it's all a game of duality anyway. So I think one can either, pray to him in a very jovial, cheerful way or very serious way. So that's what I try to do. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Nowadays, who's Samira?
No, I think this is Namita.
Okay.
Yeah, Jai Baba. Namita.
Hi, Jai Baba.
Namita? Me? No, there's another Namita, isn't it?
Oh, this is somebody else. Okay. I thought it was.
Nowadays, Hi, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I want to see everyone's face.
Hey. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Okay. I like to dress up Baba and play with him with flowers and feel his words. I do it regularly for last 2-3 years, morning and evening, and that's my date with Baba. And yeah, it's very very magical. I love that time with Baba, and yeah, the regularity is his gift to me because I do it almost every day, twice, and I choke on the words. It's like a give and take. I feel his presence when I am reading, and when I dress him up and put the little feather on his forehead, and yeah, it's very beautiful.
So Namita, you are romancing the divine beloved as well as the worldly beloved at home.
This is our honeymoon time with Baba, so let it be come.
She has become emotional.
Yeah.
So Jai Baba, growing up in Pune, as a kid, we used to always go to Bun Garden, and I was always fascinated, whenever we went near the house. And then, we used to buy, my chappals and everything were bought from a shop called Kumar Shoes, which was inaugurated by Baba. So I've seen Baba since I was very small. And but really didn't realize that I'm going to become a Baba lover much later. And so the only prayer my parents taught me was the Gayatri Mantra. There's nothing else. So we used to say the Gayatri Mantra regularly. And later on, because I didn't know any other prayer, I say Baba's prayer only once, but I do take Baba's name because Bhauji had specifically asked me to take Baba's name as much as you can. And so I've been trying to do that. I don't think, and I try not to be a hypocrite, because this is what Bhauji had said, that this time in this avatar, hypocrisy is something which is the only thing which he doesn't want. So um, I think that's the only thing I try for. Jai Baba.
I guess my turn, Jai Baba. I got into Baba through my grandfather, my father. I'm born into Baba family, so Baba is like it's just constant remembrance all the time. I had personal connect with Baba maybe at the age of 15 or thereabouts, and I think he's there with me all the time. I go to all the temples, churches, ritual prayers at home. I'm praying to Baba all the time. Uh, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, the Parvardigar prayer and repentance prayer, it's not regular with me. I don't do it every day, but I start the day, first thing I do is to see Baba's picture. That's been right from childhood. And then I don't know how many times I remember him through the day. I don't count. So he's probably there with me all the time. So that's me.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Very nice. Mama, you want to go?
Since a few years, I am into Baba's fold. I hold his daman and then pray to him, maybe every day, but not very regular. But every, say, now and then, I always remember him when I get up, when I go to sleep, like that. So that is constantly, he is around me and I am around him. That is how I look at Baba.
Great. Neha?
Nowadays, I have this only one line from anywhere from prayer, universal prayer. One line, any one line, which, and it goes for days. So if I'll, your past, present, and future, if I'll think about that, it goes for 10 days or 15 days or 18 days. And then spontaneously in the next prayer, morning prayer, I do morning prayers. That's it. Evening also, but it's not very regular. If out of 30 days, I'll do for 20 days or maybe for 18 days. So it's like that. That's my, but I go for one particular, something from the repentance prayer, one line, and I just keep on, it goes for months and months, and suddenly then that changes to something else. That's my system from a very long time. Yes. Thank you.
Great. I think it's just Asma. Asma?
Yeah. So the prayers given by Baba, I don't do them regularly because I don't feel as connected to Baba while doing the prayers. I do them only when they come from the heart, when I really feel like doing them. But what works for me is I think I feel connected to Baba the most when I'm very grateful. I'm feeling grateful when perhaps I'm in the nature or I really like something around me or whatever. But these days I'm trying to remember Baba as much as possible while doing anything and everything. So yeah, that's I'm trying to connect to Baba more and more now.
Great.
Yeah.
Just a little insight. I think a lot of you may know this already. Baba used to also stand up when the prayer was being read, and he was very particular that the prayer was done twice.
Yes.
And he used to, during his accident in later years when he was in very frail shape, he used to take pains to ensure that he stands, and he used to rush and goad the people to finish the prayer quickly so that he could go back to his sitting position. But that's something that keeps coming to my mind, visualizing him, especially when I am in prayers at Mehrabad. I visualize that, and I feel very touched by. He used to say, "I'm charging this prayer by joining in it." Right. So I used to feel very touched by that
Yes.
thought and gesture of his. Yes. Yeah. Good. So I think this was a good sharing.
Sunil is left.
He did.
I did.
Sunil needs
I
to
did.
share.
Yes, he did.
And
Did I?
you did? Okay.
Yes.
I did.
So
I
did we
did.
cover everybody? Yes, I think. Kama, you have anything else specifically, or it's because you
I think
mentioned Baba, the
yes,
breath.
one more. I think you're correct. In fact, to add on to what you just said, Baba said, whenever you're praying, I'm always there. So when he was doing all those prayers with the mandali, he basically said that this is to remind future devotees that I'll be in their presence, whenever you will be doing the prayers. So it's you're right. And the second thing is, when you read the previous chapter, where it says that, that uh, it says all prayers with a motive fall short of the ideal prayer, which is without motive. So when you come into discourses, one of the most beautiful chapters is the final chapter called God as Infinite Love, where he talks about how when we go from the animal evolution to human being, we have lust in the gross plane, and lust is the most limited form of love. So then when you go into the subtle plane, then there is longing or possessive longing to be united with the divine beloved. Okay. And lust becomes sublimated. 50% of it is sublimated, but it's only expressed in subtle form. And then when you go into the mental plane, most of the lust is sublimated. But what happens here is there is not even the possessive longing to be united with the beloved. It is basically surrender, complete surrender, where there is no, what it says is, in the mental sphere, love expresses itself as complete resignation to the will of God, the beloved. All selfish desire, including longing for the presence of the beloved, has disappeared, as now the emphasis is solely on the worth and will of the beloved and to be united with him. So it kind of, rhymes with this particular line that all prayers with a motive fall short of the ideal prayer, which is without motive, which is, I interpret it as complete surrender. You don't have to ask anything because Baba knows everything. So we don't have to even ask him for anything. You just have to surrender, and whatever will happen according to his will. So that's how I look at prayer now. Jai Baba.
I would also like to add here that before Meher Baba, it was Muhammad. And this is a month of Ramzan. This is a prayer time. Baba has also given us the opportunity. So pray more and more, and at this time, at this particular month. This is very important phase which is going on.
True. Very good. On that note, let's continue. From eternity to eternity, God, who is the sole reality, is comparable to a shoreless ocean. The biggest ocean on earth has shores and is accordingly limited, but the ocean of the divine life has no shores. There is yet another important difference between the earthly ocean and the ocean of divine life. The earthly ocean has a surface and a bottom. The ocean of divine life has neither surface nor bottom. And yet, the analogy of the ocean is one of the closest conceptual approaches to God. If we take away the tridimensional limitations which obtain in the earthly ocean, the shoreless ocean of divine life has its existence in eternity. It has neither beginning nor end, nor is it sandwiched between the ever lengthening shadows of the past or the future. And yet, an incomprehensible divine game precipitates within its being a cosmic or transcendent illusion. This illusion is so unsubstantial that it can have no justification or standing ground in the indivisible and unalloyed reality of God. It exists by a sort of sufferance or tolerance. It comes into existence in the same manner and ultimately it vanishes like a nightmare which leaves no vestige after a man is fully awake. Eternity arrives at itself through the fleeting gradations of the manifest aspect of evolutionary forms. They are precipitated by the limitless unconsciousness trying to grasp the limitless consciousness of shoreless divinity. The limitless unconsciousness first descends into the grip of delusion in 7 steps. For the unconsciousness as such, there can be neither knowledge nor illusion. Therefore, it has to develop consciousness by extremely gradual stages, and this development of consciousness starts with the most minute degree of consciousness, which is characteristic of the most rudimentary forms. Just as a man who is in deep sleep may awake in very gradual stages, the manifested unconsciousness arrives at full consciousness in 7 important steps. See chart. But to arrive at full consciousness in the human form is the very antithesis of arriving at full knowledge of the shoreless divinity. The downward descent through 7 steps, consisting of the gradual opening of the eye of consciousness, means a fall into the veritable depths of valley of illusion. At the end of 7 strides, evolution has only succeeded in encaging consciousness in unending delusion. Man is at the very bottom of the abyss of illusory existence. He goes on taking millions of incarnations in the shadowy valley without being able to find a way out of the separative ignorance in which he is caught. After eons of participation in futile bungling, he starts to grope into the deceptive mazes of illusory values. His long-drawn sojourn through the wilderness of dual existence is a story of repeated blunders, ever tightening the grip of ignorance on his consciousness, an easy prey to the guiles of Mayavic mirage. He gets enmeshed in its clutches. He goes astray in the feverish dreams of his vitiated imagination with little prospect of launching on his homeward journey. However, by a stroke of good luck, which is God's grace, he may stumble upon an exit through these mazes and get a glimmer of the limitlessness of the real. But just at this juncture, he proves vulnerable to the temptation of becoming a pretentious and preposterous claimant, sailing under false colors and arrogating to himself the truth of his dim perception. It is an abortive attempt at seizing the truth. He only succeeds in being a magniloquent imitation puffed up with invalid claims. He encroaches upon the fields of the real saints, bluffing each and all whom he meets. But he is thereby only fooling himself, and he moves further into the grips of the false. Only the intercession of some compassionate master can initiate him into the real and arduous path. This path also consists of 7 stations or planes. See the chart depicting the 7 upward steps or planes to be climbed with the eye of consciousness consciousness, now fully open. The emanation of the world is, as it were, a descent from the navel of a man along one leg. The reincarnations of the soul in human form are a wandering into the wilderness of Maya between the legs of a man. I'll come back to the chart. And the onward ascent of consciousness through the planes to the realization of the original infinite beyond is like the slow and gradual ascent of an ant along the other leg back to the navel from which the creation started. The navel represents the Om point of creation. After transcending this point, the duality of the creator and creation is sublated. The portion above the navel is like the beyond, where there is conscious enjoyment of the shoreless ocean of divinity. In the gross world, as well as in the inner planes, places, states, and experiences are interlinked with each other and yet should be regarded as separate from each other. This is particularly true of the inner planes. Places, states, and experiences all tend to be fused with each other on the higher planes, and the trio, as trio, disappears in the unitary realization of the seventh plane. Let us see how places, states, and experiences. Okay, before that, maybe we'll just take a look at the chart and come back to this paragraph. Okay, the 7 stages of 7 steps upward is the ascent with the open eye, and the 7 steps of descent, firmly getting into the grip of Maya, gradually opening the eye, and this is the valley of ignorance, and then you continue to the state of God. Okay, I'll continue from 83.
Hi.
Yeah.
Karthik, could you have the picture just in one frame, all
Sure.
together? Right now it's breaking.
Yes, I will do that. Yeah. 150. Yeah, maybe even smaller. Yeah. So your next assignment is ready.
Yes. Yeah, this is nice. It's tempting.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So for the newcomers, Namita ji has drawn up very beautiful charts of the God Speaks, just as a way of learning and contribution to the group. So she draws them up beautifully and then shares it to the group. So I was telling her it's the next one.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So I'll start with the 3rd paragraph. Let us see how places, states, and experiences are interlinked with each other in the gross world as well as on the inner planes. Suppose you go for a while to Pratapgarh. This change of place brings with it a change of state in you. Your general tone of mind is different. At Pratapgarh, you also have experiences which you would not get at another place. Change of place brings in its train a change in the state of mind, and both of these result in a change in the nature of experiences felt at this new place. Just as a change of place in the physical world is linked with changes in the mental state and gathered experiences, an ascent to a plane also brings about changes in stages and experiences. Maybe I was doing 200%. Yeah. An ascent to a plane means a change in the standing ground of consciousness. It is a change of place. It therefore brings with it the changes in states and experiences. But the changing states and experiences which accrue from the change of plane are radically different from the changing states and experiences which accrue from wandering in the gross world. The qualitative difference is enormous. However, in the planes, also we have the interlinking of places, states, and experiences, all these remaining separate from each other up to a particular point only. How the places, states, and experiences tend to get fused into each other and how their initial separateness comes to be gradually obliterated may be illustrated by an example which does not involve a change of plane but consists merely of a change of state within the normal range of gross conscious souls. When a gross conscious person has a dream, he has, as in his waking state, an experience of some place and also of some mental state and experience associated with it. But the place, mental state, and experience with which a person is confronted in his dream do not have the same externality or separateness which characterize them in wakefulness. It will be very artificial and even misleading if we try to separate the place in the dream from the state and the experience connected with it. Though such separateness presents us with no difficulty when we are concerned with the place, state, and experience in gross conscious wakefulness. The example of the dream is merely suggestive of how a place need not invariably stand outside the state and its experiences. However, what happens in a transition into another plane of consciousness is very different from what happens in the dream. In the divine hallucinations of the subtle planes, as well as in the spiritual nightmare of the mental plane, there is a growing tendency towards fusion of the experiences which are normally separated from each other in gross wakefulness. In fact, the integral fusion on the seventh plane is so complete that there we cannot have any places, states, or experiences. Life there is lived only in its indivisibility. The illusion which gives room for changing places, states, and experiences has itself disappeared on the seventh plane of realization. But as long as the mind exists, the illusion also exists, even up to the very sixth plane, although the type of illusion which exists on each plane may be different. Mind is subject to imagination. It imagines and experiences imagination through places and states, which imagination creates. So long as mind exists, imagination also persists, and the imaginary places, planes, states, and experiences also continue to engage the mind. Just as in the gross world there are places, states, and experiences, there are imaginary places, states, and experiences on the subtle and mental planes. Yet in both cases, they belong to the illusion created by imagination. However, when the illusion exists, there are within it 6 ingredients, namely time, space, law, nature, cause, and effect. Of these 6 factors, law and nature are most important. Evolution depends on these 6 factors, and its working is clock-like and without any deviation because of the unfailing interplay of these 6 factors. Although illusion is the product of imagination, the evolutionary working within that illusion goes on exactly as it should. The determinism is complete. I'll just read the 6 again. However, when illusion exists, there are within it 6 ingredients: time, space, law, and I think by law he refers to the pyramid of laws, the 4 laws that we learned earlier, nature, cause, and effect. Of these 6 factors, so on the 7th plane, the mind does not exist. Hence, there are no places, states, nor experiences in God's will.
There is a para in between.
No, I finished that. I just reread this one line.
Okay. This is very, very important. Very important.
Yes.
Because it's not discussed anywhere else.
Yes.
And for present, it is very important for us to understand this completely. I think Kama should intervene or somebody else, or explain this. This is very important.
Yeah, so actually I stand corrected. So if you look at the 6 ingredients now, there's time, space. Time, space are constructs that you need anyway in illusion. Then you have law, nature, cause and effect. Cause and effect are one of the aspects of the pyramid of laws that we talked about anyway, right? So law is separate, and nature, he also brings out nature, cause and effect. So that I only take back the pyramid of laws which I said are referred to in law here, because that is confusing with cause and effect. With that, I'll defer to anybody else. Kama, anybody wanting to comment on this?
When you look at the big picture, the descent and the ascent, Baba said, like I mentioned earlier, evolution from the whim to the animal stage is false illusion, and from reincarnation to involution up till the sixth plane is called real illusion. So false illusion plus real illusion is equal to 0. And so this whole game that is being played from the whim to the sixth plane is basically imagination of God, which is called the divine dream. But he also mentions here that right now we are all in the gross plane and we have different states and experiences, and we also observe nature in its very dynamic, manifestation. And each one of us perceives so-called creation or nature outside us in a very different way based on our conditioning and sanskaras and so on and so forth. Equally, I think when you're going through all the different planes, the 3 subtle planes, the 4th plane, and the 2 mental planes, here this chapter mentions that there are different states, experiences, places. So they are different worlds, probably. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, but the laws probably remain the same, you know. And also in physics, space time doesn't exist, it is just an imagination. It's a very interesting topic. But so I think all this is like, again, quoting that page number 278 from Discourses. Karthik will vouch for that, the greatest detective story ever told.
Yes.
So if you're okay with it, I can just read that particular part, because it's very interesting. This whole game that is being played. Just give me a moment. I'll just find out. Okay, this is how it goes. And this is in the 7th part of Reincarnation and Karma. The drama of the continued life of the individual soul has many acts. From the standpoint of the worldly existence of the soul, a curtain may be said to be drawn over its life after the closing of each act. But no act yields its real significance if it is regarded as complete in itself. It has to be viewed from its wider context as being a link between the acts already performed and the acts still to come. Its meaning is entwined with the theme of the whole drama of which it is a part. The end of the act is not the end of the progressive theme. The actors disappear from the stage of earth only to reappear again in new capacities and new contexts. The actors are so engrossed in their respective roles that they treat them as the be-all and end-all of all existence. For the major part of their continued lives, running into innumerable incarnations, they are unconscious of the closely guarded truth that the author of the drama, in his imaginative production, himself became all the actors and played the game of hide and seek in order to come into full and conscious possession of his own creative infinity. Infinity has to go through the illusion of finitehood to know itself as infinity, and the author has to play the parts of all of the actors to know himself as the author of this greatest detective story worked out through the cycles of creation. Jai Baba. So this is a kind of a summary of this whole divine theme or creation, one of the interpretations, So I will stop here.
Sure. I think we are almost done with the book as well. So we'll at least draw beams to a full read. On the seventh plane, the mind does not exist. Hence, there are no places, states, nor experiences in God realization. Just as such, places, states, and experiences are absent in the infinite unconsciousness. What exists in God realization of the seventh plane is just uninterrupted and indivisible consciousness without any form of burden or limitation. With his back to the false and evanescent and his gaze firmly fixed on the goal of shoreless divinity, an aspirant traverses the path through spiritual planes with security if he has the help of a master of wisdom. And when he sheds his illusion completely, he finds that his mysterious sojourn has been from eternity to eternity, from God to himself. But it is not an arrival at the same point in the shoreless divinity of the eternal reality. There are no dividing points or lines. So you cannot call it a return. It is a return only in the sense of his having realized his initial limitlessness, but not a return to some imagined point or terminus. It has been a flight from eternity to eternity, from the shoreless divinity to the shoreless divinity, from the unending to the unending. It is a fulfillment that can never become stale. No one may put the seal of fineness on this story of the invincible eternal, but everyone may disappear in it and share its unending and ineffable glory. Through the incident of imaginary creation God overtakes himself only to discover that he is limitless in all dimensions. So that's beams. Great. So tomorrow we can start on discourses in the maybe I'll work with Kama and send out a note on how we are approaching the 7 themes that he has put together, and I'll work with him and then post any instructions that are there, including the reorganization of the chapters. And with that, we'll get started tomorrow.
Jai Baba.
Any other comments? Usually we don't mind stretching on a Sunday, so feel free to bring something up that's in your mind, questions, ideas.
After finishing beams, are we all beaming now?
We're beaming a bit, but the last chapter is really, we have to redo it totally, I think. I need to study it once again.
So much is there.
Yes.
In fact, there is a semantics in it, which is called limitless consciousness, which is same as infinite consciousness. And limitless unconsciousness is the same as infinite unconsciousness. So one of the challenges I have faced reading discourses, God Speaks, New Humanities, sometimes the terminologies are not standardized. So this is where it gets a little bit difficult,
I was thinking of the same with the 4 dimensions that he mentions, or the 6 dimensions. I was a bit confused there. I think so. Is it semantics? Is it interpretation subject to each of the different contexts? I don't know, but yes, it adds to the detective game.
And the other 3 words which are used, the planes, states,
experiences.
They are experiences. Experience is okay. Plane and states get confused. We have clarity to an extent on the planes now. What are the states?
No, I think that's what I took away from that chapter was actually very good. I think he's trying to play down this place aspect of the plane. We may think that a plane is a destination and distinctly recognizable as different from the ground we stand on now. So this chapter kind of plays that down and says that it may be indistinguishable, but surely there is a state and an experience. Like in that example of Pratapgarh, you go to Pratapgarh, there is a certain state of mind that you enter by that gross visit, and then you have certain experiences that are linked to that. But all of those together is Pratapgarh. In the same way, I think the plane may be indistinguishable from a place standpoint, but the state and experiences would be distinctly different and in summary will be different from where we are.
With
So
this
maybe
Pratapgarh, only with these 2 lines, I realized so much. And I was thinking something, and this has just, Baba gave me the answer. Like we say that we are not travelers, we are seekers. So in similar way, when we travel all over the world. But when we travel where Baba had traveled before, the consciousness, the pattern, the thinking. So that is why it is very important for Baba lovers to travel where he traveled. So whenever you visit, don't go to the places where you fancy or you feel like going. But it is very important now to visit only those places where Baba had visited before. So it has
extrapolate.
lots of
Sorry, extrapolating what Karthik just said, and also trying to answer Doc Mama's query. Suppose you go for a while to Pratapgarh, this change of place brings with it a change of state in you. Your general tone of mind is different. So what I've interpreted is that, as Karthik said, when you have an experience, there is a certain state of mind. So I think the state probably refers to our mind, and mind only exists up till the 6th plane, but in the 7th plane, there is no mind. So no more places, no more states, no more experiences. There is only the I am God
on
state.
the 7th. Yeah, that's on the 7th plane.
Correct. So to answer Doc, that it's a state of mind. I think that's what I interpreted it as.
It's more of an illusion, no? The mind is also an illusionary thing. And very...
I think there is correlation between the state and the plane. If you look at the God states, the 10 states of God that we studied, which is in chart 8 and chart 1, which is planes of the world, first to 6th plane, and similarly in 10 states of God, first to 6 states. There must be some correlation between the two. And of course, experience on each plane.
Can I come in?
Sure, please.
Planes are of nature and the universe. States are within. This is the major distinction. Okay, consciousness, states of consciousness within, and there is universality also. The nature, planes of nature. This is the distinction that I have understood from my readings.
Correct, Tushar. States of consciousness. That's correct.
Yeah, could be. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
But don't you feel that it's all an illusion in any case? You know, you can be in one place and experience the most beautiful aspects. Sometimes you don't need to really go there, because after going there, you might experience nothing. So it's more.
I think Pratapgarh was just an example.
Exactly.
Understand that Pratapgarh was just an example. It's not,
exactly.
yeah, planes are not a location.
Yes.
No, not.
It's a part of illusion. So
these are two different things. But as Pratapgarh was mentioned, so I thought to take a liberty and talk on the literal thing.
So by the way, where is Pratapgarh? Is it in Rajasthan?
Pratapgarh?
In Sholay there was some Pratapgarh.
Pratapgarh is in near Pune.
Oh, really? Okay.
The Pratapgarh where Shivaji.
I remember.
Hema Malini, Sholay used to go to Pratapgarh.
Oh, okay.
Baba definitely not mentioned about that. So what Samira is saying.
Sense of humor is critical for every person.
Great.
Baba has said that, not to be, like when we read about the musts were basically stuck on different planes.
Yes.
And kind of stuck on different states and experiences. So that is why I think Baba has recommended the easiest way of reaching him is not to get attached to any of these planes, any of these states. Go veiled, and he will help us. And probably in the process, some of the advanced aspirants who are in different planes, they get different siddhis and occult powers. That's where the danger is. So there is an example analogy given in discourses about the driver, and when he's driving you to a destination, so you have to go from New York to Los Angeles. That's your destination, but in between you get down and get lost in the different places. So this is what happens in the spiritual journey, that one can get entangled and get mesmerized by these different experiences, because as you go higher and higher, it's supposed to be more beautiful than the gross plane. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Yeah, Baba.
Great. So one last thing before we wind up. I'm struggling with what to about the lockdown dates and what happens after 3rd of May in India. So just keep that at the back of your mind. Let's try to sustain this even through maybe restoration of normalcy. It's 1 hour of our lives, and it's made a lot of difference to me. But I don't know how to carve it out in a really rushed schedule that I'm usually in if there's no lockdown. So we'll figure that out. But I want all of you to think about it so that closer to next Sunday,
No,
let's make up our
Mumbai
mind.
is going till June. Karthik, you are going to complete the discourses. Don't worry about
So
it.
is Pune.
Yes,
Pune and Bombay.
Mumbai are going to stay for a long time. And Mumbai, Pune, Calcutta, they are not going to release us easily.
They are all the hot spots.
I don't think
Hotspots of
Singapore
learning.
is going to release it easily as well. So
Yeah, Singapore is June already, so I think.
And Baba will see the discourses will complete, then only he'll release all of us. So,
Oh God,
that's as soon as possible.
Very good. So tomorrow we do that.
Nothing is permanent with respect to lockdown, because the moment they find something, even the open things will be closed.
You get closed
again.
Yeah.
Yes. I suspect.
And India has done only 5.5 lakh tests so far, which is nothing. Everything is still latent.
Yeah, today's newspaper said there are generally more deaths that happen in India than COVID deaths because there are no accidents happening. There's so many other deaths which happen normally which are not happening. So we have done a good thing.
Globally, even in the US, people dying just due to cardiac arrest has gone down.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's actually a good thing, right? So people are just not having medical emergencies as frequently or as is the statistic for every month. That's not the frequency that's happening now. So that's strange. So people are holding up better. So
450 people die every day in India in a road accident, which is not happening.
Yes.
So
I've been thinking about that for a long time. That's the biggest benefit.
4 lakh deaths in a year only with TB.
Yeah.
TB, tuberculosis.
Yes.
We have not been able to control that.
Exactly.
And lot is not reported right now, so you don't know what deaths are taking place.
Sure. I think the general tone gives me the confidence that this will continue. And it's just,
Let's focus only on the discourses.
yeah,
And
I think it's
Baba.
just me and Mama who have to figure out how to handle things if
No, Bobby,
Bangalore
there
opens.
is no problem.
Okay, good, Mama.
Baba will organize
So it's just
everything.
me. So, okay. So the pressure of the team will ensure I continue. So trust assured on that. So we will look forward to finishing discourses on a daily basis.
Okay, Jai Baba.
Okay, Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Jai
Namita,
Baba.
you're
Jai
getting a
Baba.
virtual hug from me.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Have a
Jai
nice
Baba.
day, everyone.
Thank you.
Jai Baba. Jai
Bye.
Baba.